Maybe not what you said. Go around. One of them things. Yeah, we did. We did indeed.
He graduated in like late 19s. What did you do? He's working going the other way. I have so much power. Here,
Todo, miedo, abajo y balas.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, and welcome from wherever in the world you may be joining us today. Sorry, Daniel. Thank you for moving that slide along. Daniel is very aware of my own visual presence. Great, thank you for joining us in our latest in our sequence of Fringe casts. Today we're very much focusing on August itself, which we've never done yet today.
No.
It's very much about getting prepared so as you are ready to hit the ground running in August.
Exactly.
But August is just around the corner.
It really is. It's getting closer by the day. So I guess the first thing is that we should introduce ourselves. So if we turn the camera back on. Hi. So I'll start. My name's Alan. I am the registration manager here at the Fringe, which means I'm in charge of the registration process for all the lovely shows that come and register with us, but also look after events like this with Daniel.
Hello, my name's Amy. I'm the media and marketing advisor at the Fringe. I advise on all things media and marketing, from approaching the media to flyering and lots of other things in between.
And hello, I'm Daniel, and I'm the digital marketing coordinator here at the Fringe Society. So it means I look after our social media, our email marketing, and all the tech behind the scenes in Fringecast, which includes turning off the webcam right now. So
Yep.
we can
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And relax.
I have not done my hair today. So Daniel, tell us, how did we might have some listeners who are joining us who have listened before, hopefully long-term fans. But how do these sessions work?
Sure, we just do this recap in case you're a first-time listener, whether you're listening live or back on a recording. And it also gives people a chance to tune in, because people often roll in about 5 minutes late.
Our very own latecomers policy.
And we'd hate for them to miss anything. So we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know the questions that you want to ask. We don't know what you don't know. We've had loads of questions come in advance, and I'll come on to that in a second. But the way these sessions work is if you're listening to us live, we really want to hear from you. We want you to head to that live chat on YouTube, which is in the top right-hand corner on desktop, under a button on all the other platforms, and just tell us what you want to know. In a few moments, we'll cover all the different topics we're planning to talk about today. So if any of those things sort of spark a question in your mind, please don't be afraid to ask that question. There is no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to the Fringe, because there's so much going on.
So much.
My only other points on this is if you're watching live and you miss something, this is recorded. You can come back to it at any time on this page on YouTube. And if you're listening back to this at a later date, so you're not listening to this live, the live chat will update in real time as it did on the day. So if I talk about a link and I pop it in the live chat, it will appear at the moment I say that.
Oh, I did not know that.
So it's not just it may look empty at the start, but then it starts filling up.
Great.
But talking about filling up, we've had lots of questions in advance of today. We'll try and pop them on screen now. Yep, they're coming in now. Okay.
Well,
in one big go. There
One
they
big
all
go.
are. And we've had a look at these in advance. A lot of these have been covering main topics, such as flyering, which is handy, given it was in the title of today's episode. Some questions about social media, some questions about PR and reviewers, and then some other more specific ones about reaching out to reviewers and elsewhere. But what do we say about some of those topics?
yeah, I would say, so we've covered some of those topics already. And as Daniel said, those Fringe casts are available to listen back to, so we'd very much encourage you to do that. If you have specific questions and we have time at the end of the day, we always will try and answer any questions. However, because we only have an hour and I'm looking at our sort of script of events and there's a lot for us to get through, so in order to do that stuff justice, we kind of have to focus very much on that. So I would, if you've got lots of questions on that, I'd advise either sort of getting in touch or listening back to what we've had before.
But we hope if your question in advance was relating to flyering or postering or any sort of marketing during August, we're either covering it today or we've covered it in a previous episode. So if you haven't heard it today, do listen back to those previous episodes if you haven't already.
And you can find them in their own playlist, which is Fringecast 2019.
And I've shared the link in the live chat too.
Yay!
But do absolutely, like if you've got those questions, even if you've asked it in advance already, it's good, throw it in the live chat if we're coming on to that topic, because genuinely these sessions work best when they're interactive and we hear from you and we can make them what you want from them.
So today, what are we going to cover?
Let's give you a rundown.
Hopefully Alan's putting them on screen so I remember what they are. So we're going to kick off very quickly about just recapping who we are and how we can help and the ways we can support you. Then taking a look at your timeline, so things that you may have already started or things you can there's still time for you to get stuck into now. Following that, we're going to talk about what we think is maybe the most important bit. It's the things you can do for free to promote your show. This is not all about spending budget and throwing money here, there and everywhere. There are loads of ways you can build a buzz about your show without spending a penny. One of those is the inspiration machine, which we'll come on to. Once we've done that and we've covered those free things, we will talk about budgeting because it is important to think about it. We've had a whole episode about budgeting, which I'll share a link to as well. But this is specifically about how to budget your marketing and how that impacts your design and print, your postering and your flyering. And we'll be doing flyering last because we know it's the biggest topic with the most questions we've had come in. So if you have flyering questions, don't worry, we are going to get to it. We're just holding on to it. We know it's quite a bumper topic.
It's like a tactic to keep people listening.
It's a bumper topic. Save the best till last, as it were. So to start off, who are we? How can we help?
Cool. Well, hopefully you should know this by now, but you never know if you're a first-time listener or you're new to us. We are the Fringe Society, and that is basically, we're a charity that looks after, supports the Fringe. We don't run things, we don't program, we don't make those decisions. It also means we're impartial. We're there to support participants, but we're there to support all participants. So we're like a very, very functional family that has no favourites, which does mean we won't ever do things for you, but we can help you to kind of make the most of your Fringe experience. So basically, when you paid to register your show, which hopefully you've done by now, part of what that payment was, you're paying for our services. So please, this is kind of like a direct plea, use us. There's nothing more frustrating than you speak to someone right at the end of the festival and they've maybe had a difficult time and you're like, we could have helped you. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, if you're listening now, we might be preaching to the choir, but if you know other shows, let them know about us. Spread the word.
And our role, for example, so we can't do it for you. Our role as an organisation is to bring people to Edinburgh. Yes. And once they're here, it's up to you to grab their attention. Yeah.
We've got our marketing team that's in charge of marketing the festival as a whole, and then we have our participant services team that exists to look after participants. So absolutely uses.
And Amy's role is probably worth covering.
Yes.
The media team we have is really for the Fringe, except for me. I'm here for you guys. Your fees help pay for me to help you with your press release and any questions you might have about reaching out to the press.
I'm just going to share Amy's email address in the live chat.
And Amy and myself, and sometimes Daniel in August, will live in
here.
We don't actually live there.
Well, practically.
we have had people try to live there in the past. Please don't try and live in Fringe Central. But it is very much intended to be your home away from home in August. It's based just off George Square on the corner of Windmill Street and another street that I always forget the name of.
I want to say
Chapel Street?
I just haven't made that
Chapel and Windmill? That's both...
Sound very quaint.
Sounds lovely and charming. Yes. But basically, it's a performer hub. It exists as somewhere where you can call your home away from home.
Yep.
It has our whole participant services team. It has our media team. It has our arts industry team. So basically, anytime you want to engage with us, you can come. But also, it's the holy grail for doing admin. Mm-hmm. There's computers there which you pay. I think it's £2
for the month.
Pay, and then you get a login for the entire month.
Free Wi-Fi,
printing services,
and just to reassure people, it's not normally that busy. It's
a
place to chill out.
That is a particular event. It's there for some. Do you know what? We're going to go on to a program of events that's there as well. But one of the things that I think we sometimes blow right past when we're talking about Fringe Central, but it's really important, is there's lots of specific things we do, but actually one of the best ways to use it is just to turn up and use it to be like, oh, actually, I've got an hour gap between when I had a meeting with someone and when I have to start flyering my show, or I've done some flying in the morning and I don't have time to go all the way back to my accommodation before I then have to be back at my venue for my show. Use Fringe Central, crash and talk to people. That's why that picture is great. We're going to talk a little bit about networking at one point and actually building your community at the Fringe. That sounds really cheesy, but it's so important from a marketing point of view, as well as a sort of mental health and sort of career progression and development. Being able to share and get people talking so as you can be part of the wider conversation is genuinely so important. So use Fringe Central.
And it's open from Monday the 29th of July until the end of the Fringe.
Right.
Every day from 10 till 8. Poppy's asked a question about how much the printing costs are. I don't have the top of my head, but it's probably on that Fringe Central page. but they're nominal fee. We charge them
competitive
at cost.
rates, I believe, is what
We charge them at cost. But you said we have a number of events that take place at Fringe Central. That are available in your Fringe Central events program, and this was sent out to every primary contact of the show. But if you haven't got it, I've just shared a link through to how you can find that. And there's over 100 events, you said, but we just want to highlight this event called How to Get Your Show Noticed. So it's an event that we're running together, and it's kind of an extension of these Fringe casts. We're running them at a number of days.
It's kind of like the live version of our podcast.
Yes.
Number of dates, a number of times, and they'll all be a little bit different. So at the start, we'll be covering the introduction and the basics. And as we move through the Fringe, we'll be helping. If things aren't quite working, we're here to help to refocus what you're doing. And when we get to near the end, we'll be talking about looking beyond the Fringe and other things you could do. But like every event at Fringe Central, they're absolutely free. You don't have to get a ticket. It's just first come, first serve. Turn up and we'll be there to help.
The one on the 16th is actually just my way of registering my own birthday.
I thought
That's
you
a
said
happy birthday,
I was
Alan
worried I'd be spending it alone, so I've planned an event.
And
so
you're all
lots of
welcome.
people can see me. Yeah.
And the great thing about these events is we're here to support, but it's also about joining up different artists with different experiences, because some things work for some people, some things work for other people, and it's a great chance to share how things are going. And if you're having a great Fringe or a difficult Fringe, it's there to share that and talk and
if you're not having a good Fringe, let us know.
Yeah, do you know what I think is really important, and it's a really good thing to keep in your head through all of what we're about to talk about, is we're going to talk about like kind of lots of different things. And I think it's really important to understand there's no golden rule.
No.
Like something like flyering, there's not like, listen to Alan, Daniel and Amy's magic 5 steps and everything will be fine. Something like flying can be really difficult, and actually I would say it's about using a combination of different things and just finding what works for you.
I can't believe you jumped. We said we'd do flying at the end.
No, but I was just using that as an
Just
example of like keeping in your head
Yeah.
of we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but actually it's about using all of these things in conjunction with each other and finding the mix that makes the perfect cocktail.
For most of these
for
things,
you.
there isn't a right answer. It's not like we're hiding the secret. If you stand on this street corner between 12 and 2, that's what's going to sell your show out. It's a huge festival. It's a lot more complicated. There's loads of factors, and we're here just to help you think about what those factors are and think what might work best for you.
Yeah, and your needs will vary on those factors wildly. So
Cool.
So we said we'd look at timeline and the order in which you should approach things. And the way we've ordered these Fringe casts, the last 3 episodes, kind of reflects this. So we started off at first talking about marketing as a whole. Then we looked into social media. Then we looked into PR, reviewers and media. And now we're talking about designing flyers and posters.
And the main thing about this timeline is, one, it's not too late, so don't panic. If you've not done any of the things on those that screen, it's not too late. Don't have a massive panic. It's about going, okay, what do I need to do? And it's also about not jumping straight into the end point without having done the first ones.
Yeah.
That developing marketing plan might sound like quite a dry thing to come up with, but actually it's the creative seed that's going to grow your whole campaign. And if you miss that stage, you're going to struggle at every other stage. And I'd say what's important with time, like, I guess just to give like some background, my experience in this comes from being a participant and having done that and faced that timeline. And if you've never done the Fringe before, what I would say is if you can be up and running with these things pre-July, it means in July, all of those things that you thought were under control, that suddenly you're like, oh, we've not rehearsed this scene.
Yeah.
Or, oh, the set we wanted to do didn't work. Or, oh, we didn't know about public liability insurance. All those things that are going to come up, and you're going to worry about getting to Edinburgh, making sure your show is right, and which are things you should be focusing on at that time. You don't want to necessarily be concentrating loads in your marketing. Like, we actually, Amy and I's role, we'd get like a sort of little dip period just before August, because people suddenly are worried about everything else.
Yes, yeah.
And you can worry about everything else as long as you've done all this stuff and put all the cogs in motion. Otherwise, you're going to be up against it.
So the thing that comes first, when we talked about developing a marketing plan, more specifically, when we've talked about in the past, it's thinking about branding. And I think that word sometimes put people off, but we're talking specifically when we're looking at flyers or posters, it's about that brand and that consistency and what your show is about.
And that's the essence of it. Like, what is your hook? And that's like whether you're contacting the press, designing a flyer, talking to someone about coming to your show, you need to understand by branding. It's not necessarily like what's your logo. It's like what is
are
the
you?
it's
What are you
what is the
doing?
essence of your show?
Yeah.
And then that's gonna carry right the way through everything.
And whether you've got, just flyers or a whole swathe of posters and flyers or whatever,
Yeah.
if it's consistent, it will jog people's memories, people will
Yeah.
see it. The last thing you want is a radically different approach for each.
Yeah, and all of those things on the screen there, it's stuff that applies to someone doing their first free show with no budget at all, or someone who has thousands of pounds budget going into their marketing campaign. It all starts the same, and it will all be doomed if they don't think about it. Do you know what I mean? Like you could spend thousands of pounds marketing your Fringe show
You could,
if you've not thought about what the essence of your show is and got that right. It's kind of just throwing money
Yeah.
like after bad.
And it doesn't just apply, today we're talking about posters and flyering, but it applies to your social media. It applies to a certain extent how you approach journalists. Would you say that's fair? Like knowing
Yeah.
that key message, what it's about.
When I would I said somebody earlier, I said I was a journalist. They went, are you still a journalist? I was like, I am actually still a journalist. So like, as a journalist, when somebody sends me a press release, my first question is, who is this person? What are they doing? Why are they contacting me?
Yeah.
And I read through, what's their story? What are they telling me? What's their angle? Oh, that's an interesting theme. Oh, they said something really interesting there. So journalists are always asking why. You always have to ask yourself why.
Which is that research point.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
it sounds,
Yeah.
again, it probably sounds the driest of that point, but
And
actually...
it might sound really obvious, but I don't know you. I don't know your work. I need to know the answers to these questions.
And an aspect of that in research is also, now the programme is out, it's been out for 2 weeks, really look
Has
into
it been 2 weeks?
You may have a physical copy, but you could also head to edfringe.com, really get a feel for what's on, and particularly things in your venue and things that are similar to you, shows that are like yours, and get a feel for what they're doing, whether that's on social media, or they could all be sharing their posters on social media, or you could be seeing what they're doing, and that really helps ground what you're doing and helps you think about what your brand is. If you haven't had a chance to nail that down yet, you can take inspiration from them and work out where you fit.
Absolutely. Like, I think one of the most important things, like, I was very new to marketing when I did my Fringe show, but like one of the things that stayed with me is understanding where you fit in the wider Fringe. And I think I didn't know what it was that concisely when I did it. It's only kind of in the past sort of year that I've sort of started to really, like I say that in almost all these sessions, but understand the context of your show in the wider world. But thinking back, like then, that was about me realising like, oh, I'm Scottish, I'm Edinburgh based, which was a point for me. I was new writing, so I was very much being like, oh, like sort of local Scottish new writing. First time you're going to see this. There was Burns poetry in it, and you start to like hook up all of your points and then condense that into the seed that's then going to be the basis of every decision you make in terms of your marketing. It's going to determine how your flyer works. It's going to determine like where you flyer, how you flyer, all those things. So generally, like getting your brand right. And if you don't know, if you're listening in and you're like, I don't know what the brand of my show is, then actually the first thing I would say to do tonight is like sit down, throw some bullet points down about what your show is. And it can be harder for different genres sometimes, I think. Like theatre, I think, can be quite easy because theatre is very much about telling a story kind of thing.
Very much.
But like, even if you're someone like who just says like, oh, it's just me and I'm just telling jokes, I'm like, well, how did you come into comedy? Why are you choosing Edinburgh? What's different about this show? Like, you have to find your narrative. Kind of thing.
And a good way of doing that is maybe talking with someone, say a friend or a relative,
Oh,
who
totally.
doesn't know your show.
Yeah.
So you start
Distance.
telling them what your show is, and then they may go, why didn't you mention this or that?
Yeah.
Before we moved on, someone just got in touch to say that Amy was very helpful with feedback.
Ah.
So
You're welcome.
we set that up really well.
Thank you very much.
But she's not just here for press release advice,
Yeah.
it's more your broader marketing strategy. So if you look at those bullet points and you think you've got it, and you maybe have done your release or you're not at that point yet, you can just jot a line saying, we think this is what we're talking about,
Absolutely.
this is our story, how does that sound to you? And you can offer impartial
And I
advice
can
on
help
that.
because I understand that when you've been making your art, marketing has been literally
Oh
the
my
last
God.
thing on your mind. You maybe went to uni or college and you weren't taught about it. So this is like sitting down and watching an episode of The Apprentice maybe because you're going, what do these words mean? What is a unique selling point? What is this? So I get it. Don't worry. And I can help break that down into bite-sized chunks.
Totally. It's
Cool.
about, I guess it's about trying to like switch on the sort of business side of your
Yes,
brain, but
yeah.
not losing the great creative side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to see is when you fringe artists are the most creative people in the world, but then their marketing is safe or really serious or
Yeah.
it doesn't reflect who they are.
Or it's like if you're at a party, you get introduced to someone and they go, oh, so what do you do? And you're like, I find it really hard to talk about myself. So it will be really hard for some people to talk about themselves and their work, but other people, they will find it easier.
Do you know what? It's really true. So what Daniel said about talking to friends or family is really important because
Get a third party.
Because then leading on from what Amy said, I would never refer to myself as a playwright for years. It took me a long time of doing print
But
shows
you
and writing
literally
plays.
wrote plays.
Yeah, like I literally, and actually it was our former chief exec, Kath Mainland, introduced me to someone once as a playwright.
Yeah.
And I immediately forgot how to like speak. I was like, oh no, I'm no.
Yeah.
And it's that, it can sometimes feel like shameless self-promotion or something.
Yeah.
But it's actually what we're saying to do is actually removing yourself from that kind of awkwardness and actually being like, right, I need to own this.
Yes.
And it can be difficult, which is why, and this is going to really come into play when we get to flying down the line, but being able to kind of write it down or plan it takes away some of that awkward self-promotion. So as by the time you're standing with a flyer in the street talking to someone, hopefully it should actually feel a bit more scripted in a way that so as you're almost performing a role of someone who's marketing their show.
Yeah.
Right. So that should hopefully cover the basis of branding. We promised that we'll cover the things you can do for free, of which there are many, and these are often things people overlook. So the first one is your online listing. And Alan, as our registration manager who handles all the shows that come into the programme and then get printed and put online, what can you do in your online listing?
So I say, like, we always go on about being fair and every show being treated the same, but actually, if you look at listings, some listings have way more information than others, but that's because that show has chosen to do it.
Yes.
So there's a media tab in Ed Fringeware when you register your show, which offers like your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, SoundCloud, a video from Vimeo or Instagram. There's loads of previous reviews you might have had. You can opt into audience reviews to let like those go. And there's also things like updating your image. All of that stuff that I've just said, you can update at any time just by the person who registered the show emailing program@edfringe.com. And what's important about that is that for absolutely nothing, like you've already paid your registration fee or whatever, you make sure your listing is doing its work, like working for you. Make it work for you. So if someone's like, oh, I'm not sure about this show, and then they see, oh, hang on, I've pressed more information, and I'm seeing their Twitter feed, I'm seeing a trailer they've just done, they've updated their web copy because now you are a bit surer of what the show is, and you know what angle you're taking. Your image, you've just had a really great image design for a poster, and you're actually like, oh, do you know what, this is kind of feels like the adult version of what we did, not that kind of adult version, the more grown-up version of what we originally registered in the program. All of that stuff we're happy to change as long as you're not wholesale changing your show, and so as your listing is consistent with what you're going to do everywhere else.
We had a question come in, I think you're going to like it. It's from Dan, who says, when we say the online listing is free, that assumes you've paid for registering your show.
Yes, it does.
Do you want to explain what the role of registration is and why there's a fee and what that gets?
So I will say there are many shows that happen around the Fringe landscape that don't register with the Fringe Society.
And that's your
and
choice.
that is absolutely fine. We're not like going to police that or anything. They are part of the Fringe landscape. However, registering with the Fringe Society means putting yourself in the Pretty programme, or now since we're doing online only in the summer, it will give you your listing on edfringe.com and on the app. If you have tickets, it means the Fringe box office will sell your tickets or distribute free tickets on your behalf. It also gets you all the services we've just been talking about. So it gets you access to Fringe Central. It gets you access to the events that are happening in Fringe Central. So little of the fee that you pay to register is actually for that listing.
It's not an advert.
It's actually about the services and being able to email Amy and be like, this is my press release, what am I going to do? Or, oh, do you know what, I'm just feeling like a little bit stressed, I want to nip into Fringe Central and check in with the team to see if there's anything more I can be doing. All of that stuff comes with registering. So yeah, that's...
And if you go back to the history of the Fringe Society, we were a charity that was created in the 50s by the artists that were coming to the Fringe to help make sense of it. And part of that was the online listings, but part of it was a support centre and networking and connecting. And to this day, we still exist as a charity that was created by artists, and we're funded by registration fees, and that's what helps us be here. That's what helps us put these sessions
And
on.
I should have said, if in case I wasn't clear there, registration, obviously for the Pretty programme, has closed because it exists, it's out there in the world. But registration has reopened for summer registration. So if you haven't registered and you actually are sitting going like, do you know what, I would like a listing, I'd like a bit more coverage, I'd like to be able to use the services of the team, you can absolutely still register. Drop an email to program@edfringe.com, check out the register section. Daniel pops it in the chat. The register section of Take Part, which leads to Ed Fringeware and talks you through all the steps. There's a fee involved, but it depends on the number of performances you're doing. It's either £96, £204 or £295.20.
And if you decide that your registration isn't for you this year, that's absolutely fine. Still drop in and if you're planning come to another Fringe, we can talk you through it a bit more and talk about how we can help you. So we got slightly sidetracked there. So on there we have social media. So that's not just including social media on your listing, but just doing social media, which we covered in episode 7.
Yeah, because we talked about there are ways that you can put money into social media, but actually a lot of social media is still just free, and the only place the only place where it costs you is time and energy, these things on this list. So doing them at this time of year when you have more of those is really important.
Yes.
And the last two, I think it's worth saying the last two, it's not making the assumption that you know these people already. It's about the fact that you're already part of a network of people bringing a show to the Fringe. You may not know these people. You can connect with them. And one of those places, although someone has already mentioned it in the live chat, we do have an exclusive Facebook group for Fringe artists. It's a closed group, so you have to be bringing your show to the Fringe to go in there. And that's a great chance to find people doing similar things to you. But another great thing you can do is if you find another show listed online and you think they're in a similar space to you, similar background, similar topic, if they've put their social media on their listing, you could just reach out to them and get in touch with them that way.
Yeah.
So this is not saying this is only for people with a black book that know all these people. It's about connecting with the people who are either coming to the Fringe or as an artist or as an audience member or journalist.
And also the contact and networks that I would say that you should take advantage of aren't necessarily ones that would be in a little black book. They're ones that, like people who know and support you already, you never know who's coming to Edinburgh. So like people who are already fans of your work, friends, family, like you want to be able to kind of activate them and be able to talk and share about your show, like have it be a conversation point, because the thing about the audience for the Fringe is it's so vast and you never know where it's coming from really, that actually your auntie's greengrocer's daughter may be coming up with a show, and actually your auntie telling everyone how proud they are of you converts to like a sale in August.
Right, so we're coming up to half past. We're going to move on to quite a specific free thing you can do, which you've probably heard before if you've tuned into a previous episode. But it's new for this year and we're quite excited about it, so we keep bringing it up. But this is, like I say, a new feature for 2019. It's called the Inspiration Machine. And if we could describe it in a sentence, it's kind of like an online listing. It's your opportunity in 10 seconds on a video to sum up what your show is about, to convince someone to come and see you who may have never heard of you, may not know anything about your show, and it's your chance to convince them to come and see you. The way they're going to see this is both on a physical machine that's being built as I speak, that will be out and about on the streets of Edinburgh, but also available online, on desktop and on a mobile device. And the benefit of this is often Fringe goers, if they've never come to the Fringe before, or veterans, can be overwhelmed by the sheer number of shows available.
I mean, I've read every show I think that's in the programme and I'm a little overwhelmed with what to see.
So the idea of this is in the physical machine, you hit a button and it just serves up a random selection of 3 shows at this year's Fringe. All shows, if you're registered, you're in this already. But if you take part in this and upload a video, that video then gets shown to the people looking at it.
So I've not been involved a lot with the Inspiration Machine. It's very much Daniel and his department's baby, and Amy's department. However, one thing, so I went up to the office today to see some of the videos, and genuinely I was massively impressed. Like, because people started like showing us their favourite ones. People are like, "Oh, Alan, you've not seen this one," and there are some people who have done such a good job of this, and it's people who have been creative. We talked about that, not turning off the creative side of your brain. Like, you're Fringe participants, which means that you're some of the greatest people in the world and some of the most inventive and creative people in the world. So don't suddenly lose that and be like, oh, I need to stand and do like a pitch of like, oh, this is a award-winning 5-star. Like, lose the hyperbole and actually just be like, do you know what, we're going to do something just completely visual, like for 10 seconds. We're going to do, like, there's some great
and
ones.
the best way to do it is designed for you to go into that website I've shared in the live chat, which is uploader.edfringe.com on your mobile device. Type in your show details, your email address, and then it just says, hit go, hit record, and then you get 10 seconds. And in those 10 seconds, you don't need to say where it is or when it is. We'll share that factual information. It's just to grab someone's attention in 10 seconds. Because you're going to have...
I saw that was just like flashing images that progress and then the name of the show at the end. And it's like, oh, do you know what? I'm intrigued by what... I've not heard anything about what it's about. Do you know what I mean?
But that might lose out to someone just being simple and compelling and doing it on the moment.
It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be slick, but it's just saying it doesn't necessarily have to be you standing talking. Yeah. Like, think outside of the box.
And you can when you do it, you can have a few takes and then you submit it. When you submit it, we'll have a look, we'll moderate it just to make sure it doesn't have, I think just expletives and extreme nudity.
Moderation.
Extreme nudity, but we'll also be subtitling them so people with access requirements can still make sense of them. I've had 3 questions come in about it, which I think I'll have to answer myself. Question from Dan: does the Inspiration Machine specifically play pictures for shows that will be going on soon that day? Yes, there's an element of logic that means it will only show shows that would make sense to show someone. So imagine it's the second day of the Fringe and your show's in the last week of the Fringe. Your show won't come up, but if you're near that time, then that show will come up. Does the machine play music as well? Good question. It plays sound, but bearing in mind people may be looking at this on their phone or they'll be outdoors in a loud environment, so really focus on the visual.
So don't rely on
it. And also with music, you have to have the rights to use it, otherwise that's a whole can of worms, which means we may not be able to use the video. Another question was, is there a deadline? Not as such. You can submit as late as you want, but it does take us a few days to check the video and subtitle it. But you can do it now. You could do it on the first day of August, but we'll be unveiling the machine and the website to the public quite soon. So the sooner you get that submitted, the sooner you get it turned around, the better. Once your video has been processed, you can also download it for yourself to use on social media. So it's not just something that you're throwing into a black hole and will never see again. When it's finished, you'll get it back. Final question was, are there any examples of these innovative videos? At present, we're not showing them because it's about being about you and being creative in yourself. Once the machine goes live, yes, you can look at other shows, but realistically, it's about yourself. When you registered your show, you wrote your copy yourself. You weren't copying another show.
Well, yeah, like that one I talked about seeing today that was flashing images, whatever. That worked, I imagine, because it was that show. It wouldn't have worked on another show. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have worked for any of the ones I've done in the past. You have to figure out what works for you, and it's going to be different for everyone.
But that'll be going live in a few weeks' time. But right now, if you head to uploader.edfringe.com, you can put it in. And someone's asked if it's random. Yes, it is fairly random. But the
with
show,
that logic.
The logic of is it available? And if a show has a video, it's more likely to appear. So that's an incentive to... It is random, but videos get shown more because they're more interesting.
Yeah.
If you don't submit a video, it will still show your listing, but just in text form because that's all we have. So that's the machine. You can fire more questions out. I will come up to some other questions on that. But next, we've got your budget, which we'll cover quite quickly because it's not. We're not talking about flyering, and that's what everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah. With budget, really, what we're saying is have one, and you'll have hopefully had it in place from when you started like looking for venues and things. And we did a whole Fringecast on budgeting, but marketing does cost money, but it is very much like we were already talking about loads you can do for free. So actually, what you have to know is what you're working with and what that budget is. So like if you can't afford a big fancy PR,
don't do it. That's the number one thing people are asking me. Should I hire a PR? Should I get big posters put up in this place? I'm like, if you have the budget and you think it will be useful for you and what you want to achieve, yes. But if you don't have the budget, don't do it.
Yeah, if you're sending out...
I can't stress that enough. If you don't have the budget, don't do it.
If you've been sending out press releases, chances are you're now going to start getting some lovely kind of marketing emails back from some of those publications that are offering advertising, because publications need advertising to
They do.
still exist.
Mm-hmm.
And they could give you some really good offers. And you know what? You could find a bargain there.
Yeah.
And if it fits with your budget, absolutely. Like, look at that opportunity. However, if you don't have the budget for it, or if that publication doesn't really sit with you as one that
You want to work
necessarily
with
your
or-
target
yeah,
audience
yeah.
matches, then do not feel pressured. Do not feel like it's something you have to do. And anyone who's offering you advertising should be able to give you like a media pack, letting you know who their audience is.
Or you can find it on their website quite
Yeah.
easily. That'll list all their prices and the dimensions of ads and audience numbers and that kind of thing. I do feel that sometimes people feel that if they don't take out an ad, they won't get a review. And there are publications that do tie in reviews and adverts. I don't agree with that, but they are very clear about it. And if anyone's not clear about it, then I don't like them. They're on my bad list.
But it's very much that look at your budget.
Yeah.
Don't feel
Don't feel pressured.
into
Yeah.
going over your budget.
No.
And think sometimes like you might be chasing an advertising opportunity and actually maybe you don't have your images looking how they want to be, or you don't think your show is necessarily a massively visual one, then actually maybe that money is better spent somewhere else.
Yeah.
Whether that's like on getting a photographer in to get some really good images, or like throwing some money behind advertising on social, like
Yes.
that kind of thing.
And if you do, like I say, you don't feel pressured. If you do, one of the options for advertising, you can advertise on edfringe.com.
The one place you can't haggle.
Because everyone is charged the same. And we do this, if you compare what we charge participants compared to businesses, we pretty much do it as a service at near cost price. So that's an option available. But again, it's only if you've got the budget and you think it's what suits you.
Yeah, we never do the hard sell and we never haggle because everyone pays the same, whether you're off the telly or a first timer.
Everyone pays the same. But the dates you run it, like if you run an advert now, it's cheaper than in August. But have a look, but only do it if you want to. So we talked a bit about design and printing and about how maybe rather than buying ads, getting a right photo is right. It's all about looking good and getting the right shot. So what are our thoughts about this?
So
Yeah.
I very rarely have strong opinions on where people should spend money, just because you get weird imposter syndrome about like someone going off and spending money just on
Yes.
what you say.
Yeah.
But one place I am quite firm that if you're going to spend money anywhere in your production, images is probably the way to
Yes.
go.
I spoke to a participant today who had a fantastic poster image. I was like, this is amazing. That's such a good image. And she was getting posters and I was delighted because it was such a strong image. And I just wanted to know more about this. She didn't even know what the show was called or just the image was so good.
An amazing photo on 10 posters is more effective than a rubbish photo on 500.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, also like if you've got that imagery which works for your marketing and then you've got separate press images that are also really great. I know, Amy, you've talked about in the past that if an image is really great, it'll help you run something.
Absolutely. If I get a really strong image, I'll go, oh, what's this show about then?
Yeah.
You know, and that really helps. So yeah, have good images.
And we talked about contacts and network earlier. If you do know someone that can help, that's great. But don't pressure people like artists. All artists should be paid for their work. But if someone really wants to do you a favour and gives you a good deal or for free, if they so
Portfolio
wish,
work.
whatever.
Or,
But you shouldn't rely on that. You shouldn't assume that because artists should be paid. That's one of our philosophies. It's incredibly valuable.
Honestly, like I've been shows where we've got the image right and got the image wrong, and the year we got the image wrong, we knew quite quickly we got it wrong, and it took like we got it fixed, and then we did the thing of making it consistent everywhere, but it was like playing catch up.
And it's something we can offer advice with as well. If you
Yeah.
Amy say, I'm thinking about this or this, just as a concept, we can try. Obviously, there is no right answer for everything. There isn't a one size fits all, but
But
there
we
is
can
a
just give a
rough
perspective.
indication. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a bit of like, okay, this image makes me think the show is this.
Yes. Or
this one makes me
this,
think.
the dimension of this, it will get cropped here, so this part will get chopped off,
Yeah.
and it won't make any sense.
So
That kind of thing.
we're nearly at flyering, but first postering, which is the second most common question we got in advance about how do I book posters? Are posters worth it? How does postering work in the city? So I guess the first point of which posters can work, and I say not every show does postering, it's just an option. Some people do it, some people don't. I don't know the breakdown. But the thing to consider is Edinburgh is incredibly busy during August. Poster space is at a premium. But one place that should have space is your venue. Always make sure you give them posters if you have them.
Yeah, some venues even offer to store your posters if they have the space, which is really useful.
Yeah, as a general rule, like your venue should be so in the loop with what you're doing marketing wise. Not in a way of like, please don't be the person who like pesters your venue, but like actually communicating with them and making sure they have everything they need. So if they want to be able to put posters up, you've got them and they're where they need to be for your venue when they're meant to be there. You're suddenly, if they're then looking at a prime location, they're like, oh, these ones are here.
Yeah.
And your venue is somewhere you want a really good relationship with, because in the way that we're impartial and can't sort of sing about your praises from the rooftops, your venue really can. I have stronger opinions than I thought I did. Because I'm pretty anti-postering.
Well, that's your personal view.
Yeah, for my personal view, and I would never say don't have them, because I think having them around your venue and stuff is really important. But remember, my first show I did, I ended up feeling pressured into having like hundreds of posters.
Yeah.
Where I felt like I could have had 50 and had the same effect.
Yeah.
Like a presence in my venue, a presence around the Royal Mile. We have poster towers, which you can use for free, but everyone can use them for free. So the shelf life of your poster may not be great. But again, that was my opinion, because
for your show, that was what fitted you.
Yeah.
For other shows, it could be different. The other options we have up there are local businesses, but again, it's incredibly competitive. So don't just pop your poster up in a cafe without asking them. Obviously,
ask nicely.
Fundamental thing of poster and flyering: do not be a nuisance to anyone, because it will have the negative effect of what you want it to be.
Third point, we hope is obvious, but every year this comes up as a problem. Edinburgh is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but any city, don't fly post in any city, but particularly here. And it's one of the weirdest crimes to commit, because it's the easiest one to catch the culprit.
Someone once told me, they were like, well, they'll never catch me. And I was like, if your poster is any good, they know where you are, when, at what time,
and how much they'll have to pay to come and arrest
how long you will be there for.
They will not pay the price of admission to find you.
But as this picture shows, and as some people have said in the comments, there is an outdoor postering scheme. This is independent of us. This is run by the City of Edinburgh Council, that then outsource it to a company called Out of Hand, which some of you have talked about. So you can book through them. There's so many different formats and different packages and different prices, but they are the only official scheme.
Exactly. So the council give the scheme, so Out of Hand kind of win the contract, so to speak, from the council. And then one of the sort of things they have to do to get that is there has to be like an accessibility factor. So they have like a range. Amy's throwing mugs at me. They have a range of different prices and a range of different like sites. So definitely there. If you're at all thinking about sort of an outdoor presence, all those things you see like on fences, on posts, those are not just put up by individuals. That's fly posting. They're put up by Out of Hand. And like exactly what Amy... So I realised I was saying, I have strong opinions. I don't like posters. But if your show is like Amy, the one Amy was talking about before, where you have an image that's really striking, and you want to get out and that's where you've got budget, then I think that is a great idea.
Yeah.
We had a question come in. Time is marching on, so it's going to have to be a quick answer. It's a question from Dan saying, did I hear correctly that the Fringe has poster towers around? If so, where are they?
You did indeed.
We do. They're in a very specific place. They're on the High Street section of the Royal Mile. There's probably about 6, 8.
Yeah, well, I really had anything to do if you're listening live or catching up later. When we're finished, go back to that video that we played at the very start, the countdown video. And that's a little fly-through of the High Street, and it shows the poster towers, and that's where they are. I think it's like there are 8 of them.
Yeah.
But anyone can poster them, and they do the turnaround, like you say.
I mean, people bring their own ladders.
Some posters be up there for minutes before they're covered up. So again, think about that. Well, there's so much to talk about.
Just strategize. So don't just necessarily put all of your posters on those, because then they'll be gone within a day. Whereas if you're like, oh, we've got a slot on the street event stages, or we're going to be doing a bit of a flyering push nearby, then plaster them so as people are getting hit by a flyer, then they're seeing a poster, that kind of thing.
You've said the F word. There's 15 minutes to go. Let's
Flyer.
talk about flyering. Have hundreds of questions here, but we'll cover some basics. But even if you sent a question in advance, please pop a specific question you may have in the live chat. We'll cover the general things, but there's so many aspects of flyering we could cover.
Because I'd say
in this
there's not that much to talk about after flying, so
No.
probably we could sit for like 10 minutes and talk about flying.
Yeah.
So the first, one of the most common questions is how many flyers should I have? Before you answer that, we had a question come in. It was more of a statement saying, my venue is insisting on us all having hundreds of posters and 5,000 flyers printed. Is this normal? Is this common?
Yeah, so if I would check with your venue whether that's a requirement or a recommendation, is what I would say. Because it might just be that's what they recommend and they think works for them.
Okay.
And if it is, take that into consideration. Because maybe they've got loads of sites around the city and they want, so I think my experience when I was 50 posters was enough for me, was because my venue had one location. So there was a presence there, and then I did some local businesses, and then had some left for the towers.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're at a venue that has multiple sites across the city, and they could poster on all of them, then you could require more posters. But I would double check with them, because there's a difference between them saying this is a requirement we need you to have, and actually them just being this is just what we'd recommend for people to have.
So the question for the average person, there's no such thing as an average Fringe show.
No.
But how many flyers should people be thinking about? And how should they go about that? Should they order them all at once? Where should they order them?
How long is a piece of string, Daniel? I always say with flyer questions, it really depends on a number of factors, like how long you're going to be at the Fringe for, how big your company is, what your aims are, how long you're going to go flyering out for, where, that kind of thing. We do have a formula. If you email me, I can give you this formula. I cannot quote it because I always get it wrong, but it's the number of...
I can quote it.
Is it the number of days and the number of people you're flyering?
Yeah. So the realistic number of people realistic, not just everyone's going to fly every single day.
Yeah.
So the realistic number of people who are going to be flying, the realistic number of hours they're going to be flying for, which if that is more than 2.5 hours, I would question that, because I think after that time you would not be flying properly. And then times that by the number of days you'd be planning to do, and then times that by 50. Because if you're handing out 50 flyers an hour, that is doing very well. That is the top end, I think, of what you would need. Because it's not about just throwing as many bits of paper out into the world. It's about having a conversation.
It is, and it's a starting point to your conversation. It gets people interested, and then you get them with their pitch.
It's also the keepsake of that conversation.
Absolutely,
so it's in the bottom of your bag, and you're like, oh, hang on, no, I remember this. I feel like I'm full of hot takes and going a bit rogue today, but I would also say always less than you think.
Yeah, you can always print more. That's the thing. The printer will have your file on file. You can print more,
and you can use it any supplier you wish. But a common choice is to use a printer based in Edinburgh, because A, they know how the Fringe work.
Yes.
What's it like? B, you don't, if you're not from Edinburgh, you're not having to lug
or
ship,
which could cost so much money.
Yeah.
And then most importantly, if you have a conservative estimate on the flyers you need, just order that, maybe a bit less. And then if you get to week 1 or 2 and realise, actually, the flyering is working for us, it's bringing people in, we know that works, we need a few more, great. But you don't want a situation where you ordered loads, and then by the end of the Fringe,
you have 3 boxes of flyers.
Real fact-based story. I ordered 7,500 flyers from my first Fringe show. We were doing the full run. I'd been told that was probably what I would need. I just moved house last weekend. So my show was in 2011. It's now 2019. I had to throw out a whole box of flyers that I still had.
Oh.
It's like they're growing. It's been 8 years. How are they still there? And do you know, it's because genuinely it got to the point. And also, if you've been doing your flying right, if you get past the sort of midway point, you might find you flyer less, because actually word of mouth's now doing its job.
It links really well to a question from Poppy, which is, how do we stay eco-friendly whilst marketing? And a lot of people got in touch in advance as, given it's 2019, shall we just not do flyering? And it's a really difficult question, because obviously that's a lot of paper, and we want to reduce that. As an organisation, we've committed
massively
by 2022 that we're going to cut paper use by a third. But we're not the Fringe, we're just a charity that sits in it. It's about everyone playing a role.
And it's very easy for us to say, don't have flyers, when actually they are still a proven... I say proven, it's hard to prove it, but they are still
a staple
of the Fringe.
But fewer flyers if you can. Or
if everyone cut down by like 1,000, do you know what I mean?
it would make a huge difference. And there's other ways of getting in touch with people. Maybe you talk to them and actually you convince them to take an interest in your show. And maybe they just bookmark it in the app, or there's something else they can do. Maybe they take a photo. There's a campaign about taking a photo of flyers. There's loads of other ways. So that's a great starting point. If you don't want to flyer, that's fine. But
I also think some of the best flyering I've heard of in my time working with the Fringe Society has come out of a bad situation. So it's like they've had a problem with their print, and because of that they've had no print, or they wouldn't have had print until the second half of the festival. So they've had to come up with a creative solution to it. So like they did like playing cards because their show was about like luck or gambling or something. And actually what that did was they went, people are so used to taking flyers, when suddenly you're like, I think it was something like they only had 10. So they were like, oh, we can't give you this, but we can talk to you about it.
And you might earn it.
Yeah.
Almost, if you're
that
interested
kind of thing.
enough. Because
Because it was like, oh, do you know what? Like they were deliberately using it as a conversation starter. Because that's where it's about engaging in a conversation. I'm not going to lie, there will be some shows that it works. Like they've got a huge cast, they've got like really big loud costumes, and the Royal Mile works for them.
Yeah.
Whereas actually if you're like a sort of one person's stand-up, or you're a music show that is maybe more classical, kind of hollering on the Royal Mile is not going to be, well, I wouldn't say it's likely that's where your audience necessarily is.
particularly it's a festival of more than 300 venues located all over the city. So maybe, again, I know some people want this answer, like this place is the perfect place, but there's so many factors involved. But look beyond the norm and the cliche. Don't just go for what everyone else is doing, because it doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for you.
And do you know what? If people are looking for more definite answers, one thing I would say is like I think it's important we do some myth busting.
Yeah.
So I think when you've not been, you think, oh, I have to fly it on the Royal Mile. It's like a fringe institution. It's what happens. I would say more and more people have been moving away from that idea, because the Royal Mile is incredibly busy, so it's hard to like have that conversation with someone. Also, it's very like tourist and family oriented, which might be right for your show, but often cases might not be.
Yeah.
So I would say one of the things, if you're asking where, it's about finding someone that works for you. So learn the thoroughfares on the way to your venue. Learn Daniel said it loads at the start, like other shows like yours. Find where your audience is going, and then put yourself there within the rules that we're probably going to talk about.
With all the other tools that exist, such as social media, or you may think the flyering is going to go, and it may reduce.
I think it's reducing, but it's not going to go.
And it's also, no one is above flyering. There's a classic story of when
John Malkovich
did a show at the Fringe, and he still did flyering because it is still effective.
Yeah.
There's a picture. We've got a picture of us flying our show with John Malkovich, with that iconic 2011 flyer that will never leave.
Nice.
So we've got a question come in, and it's a classic Fringe cast question where there isn't really an answer, but we'll try our best.
I now feel like I want
Are there times?
12.
Are there times of day that are more successful with regards to flyering?
12 is not my answer.
Depends when your show is.
Yeah, I would say traditionally 2 to 3 hours before your show tends to be the most effective time, and a lot of people buy their Fringe tickets on the day, or make decisions about what they're going to see.
Huge percentage within the last hour.
On the day,
And if your show is at 10:30 in the morning, when should you flyer?
So I would say there are, depending on your time of day, it's then good to go at. So I would say if you're 10:30, I think you'll probably have a lot, maybe like post lunch, like when catching people like on their lunch who are like Fringe all dayers. Like I even found we had a show that was on at, I think it was 12:45, our first show, and we even found, because we were a little bit further away from some of the hubs, we found there wasn't a lot of passing traffic until like 12, by which point we really wanted to go and do warm-ups and be preparing for the show. So we started do you want to start your day with us? And that's how we started the conversation. So try different things.
Oh, I hope that answers one of the questions that came in, which is, our show is 11:30 in the morning. Should we flyer earlier that day, or actually flyer in the afternoon for the next day?
So I would try both. I'm not saying don't flyer before your show, because it's the Fringe. There are people everywhere all the time. So if you can find like those kind of hubs, maybe some of those like breakfast shows, if it's a theatre show, there's a lot of theatre breakfast shows that you may want to exit flyer, but I would definitely do a concerted effort, like give yourself time after the show to talk to your audience, make sure that network and that word of mouth is going. Maybe give yourself a break and then go out maybe like at 1, 2 when people are having lunch and sort of catch them and be like, oh, are you seeing a lot of shows today? Like, that's the thing. Don't immediately just go in for the hard sell. Be like, oh, are you doing lots of shows today? Great. Like, are you still around tomorrow? Start your day with us. Can I tell you about our show kind of thing? It's about starting that conversation. You remember a conversation you had with someone?
Absolutely.
Rather than just someone
And for
thirsty
example,
for
if you
paper.
just went straight into that person saying, do you want to see the show about this theatre show? And actually they're not there the next day. You've wasted a flyer.
But it's actually if you've been like, what have you just seen? Oh, I've seen that. It's great.
You're saying you should be honest?
Yeah, no, that kind of thing.
But one of the questions we got in advance, time is marching on, so it has to be a quick answer. What's your advice on paying people to fly for you?
So it happens a lot. Lots of people do it, and there are lots of people who are very good at it and are successful. Because there are some people who, with the best will in the world, and they could listen to 16 Fringe casts, and they're just never going to be able to flyer their show because they just aren't in the right headspace. And if that's you, then absolutely paying for people to flyer can work. But I would also say no one can sell your show fundamentally better than you. No. Very much on the start until you give them the knowledge. And that's the thing, if you are going to pay for someone, if someone's going to flyer your show that isn't you, then 100% they have to have seen the show.
Send them to your show.
My favourite thing to
First
do,
thing.
one of my favourite things to do in the Fringe is I test flyers. I'm a little bit mean. So I'm like, oh cool, when did you see it? What's it about? And if someone does some bad flyering, I'm like, you need to get better at this because people are paying you. So generally, like, they should know your pitch. They should know like what shows are similar to yours. You just want to like get them as passionate and excited about your show as possible. And it should be a good relationship. They should want your show to be successful.
We've all seen flyers that can't really be bothered. Maybe they're having an off day, but there's times I've spoken to flyers, I'm like, oh, what's the show like? And they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, great, cool, thanks, good chat.
That's you said you wanted 10 minutes on flyering. You've had 12.
Oh.
But there's one point left on the screen, which there are some rules.
The rules.
And there may be a bonus thing for this. Is number one is that we'd love to, but we can't accept flyers in the Fringe shop or box office because there are 3,800 shows, and if we said yes to one,
We'd be swamped.
say yes to everyone.
Or Fringe Central.
And is the
And
other
also
rule,
we have to be impartial.
and about queuing as well, flying in
Yeah,
queues.
so I would say I made a point earlier about learn the thoroughfares on your way to your venue, which is generally just bonus tip in general when you're in Edinburgh is take some time to acclimatise when you arrive and learn where things are. Go and see other shows, like learn where people are going because it'll massively help you. But you don't want to. We talk about like exit flying other people's shows and
That's our next slide. So we pop that slide up while we're on
like
it.
finding. Yeah, cool. We'll nip on while we're talking about the rules. So we've done all this like work with other people and things, but you don't want to like when people are in a queue. Don't unless you have like express permission from someone, but even then be cautious. Like just flying a queue of like I don't think the idea of like a captive audience, they can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
They're I think having a conversation is one thing, but like just flying someone when they can't escape is not good. And you shouldn't fly in venues that aren't yours.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think we've covered it. I mean, we say try exit flying if in case that's jargon. It's
Yeah.
as people are leaving one show, you
Yeah.
flyer. There's a question from Poppy, which I will ask in a second, and there's a question from David as well. I'm selfishly going to jump to the next slide because it's about social media.
Cool.
So of course I will.
Cross promotion is basically work together.
There's a lot on this slide. I won't cover it all. But a great way during August to promote your show, as we covered in the social media episode, is to get people to talk about your show on social media.
Absolutely.
If they liked it. If they didn't, maybe not. But if they did, tell them
Oh my god.
to tell other
absolutely.
people. It's a huge aspect of promoting your show. Word of mouth is still the golden way
It's also
of
really
building a buzz.
frustrating if you leave a show and you're like, oh my god, I loved that. And you're like, I have no idea how to find them, how to follow them for next year. Like, honestly, it's become way more, like every year I think it becomes more common for everyone to do like a bit of a pitch after their show. Like it used to traditionally be like the bucket pitch for like free shows or pay what you want. But I think everyone now, like even like I've seen some quite large scale theatre in established venues who at the end they'll be like, this is our socials, this we can find us. If you've loved us, tell us, leave a review on edfringe.com, that kind of thing.
It's really handy. Another thing we do goes back to Poppy's earlier question about being more eco-friendly and reducing paper use. We run a scheme, I guess, called #QuickFlyer. And the idea of this is, as we said at the start, we can't recommend shows. But what we can do is point audiences to places where shows are being recommended. The idea of QuickFlyer is you doing a quick pitch on social media as if you were out on the street, but you do it online. And a real focus point for that is between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock on a Friday, particularly because that's where local audiences, which are a huge part of the Fringe audience group, start to think about what they're going to see that weekend.
Yeah.
So we push people to look at #QuickFlyer on Twitter and Instagram, and then there's just you talking about your show. And last year we had over 1,000 artists give that a go.
So you can use QuickFlyer forever, whenever, but on a Friday at that time is when
We'll be pushing it.
Yeah.
More so when we get near the Fringe. And the final point I'd make about social media is please use this year's #MakeYourFringe. It's the most used hashtag about the Fringe. There is also EdFringe, which is used less, but I would recommend steering clear of EdFringe19, EdFringe 2019. We don't use them because it gets confusing changing it every year. We have the same hashtag, we keep it the same. Make your Fringe. Please use it.
Done.
Can I make? I know you've got some questions, and we're
Yeah.
over time, and there's still some slides.
Yes.
Can I make one point about flyering? Because it's one of my
Yep.
favorite
Go
points.
on.
It's about like ninja flyering, as I call it,
Okay.
or like subversive flyering, which is like always be on. Like, so if you're in a queue or in the pub or a beer garden or wherever, and you're just randomly talking to people, always have a flyer on you, and always just be like having a conversation about like, oh, what have you seen today? Oh, and actually, it may become a point of, actually, I've got a show in the Fringe, and this is it. And you've kind of had like a nice kind of interaction with someone, which has been a lot more about like just having a conversation and being a normal, nice human.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you've just happened to be like, oh, nudge, real quick, I've actually got a show.
Yeah.
And you've kind of flyered them without intending to or realising it. So just always have flyers on you.
And you'll always meet artists and things. People always ask you like, "Oh, what's your show?" Because people ask me that, and I'm like, "I don't have one."
And actually, I feel like this is the one Fringecast where we've not said it. People will say, "So tell me about your show,"
Yeah, all the
and
time.
you need that 30-second pitch.
Yeah.
You need to be able to reel that off, like have it scripted, like learn it,
Yeah.
and don't not in a robotic way, but be able to. When someone's like, "Tell me about your show," you should have an answer that just literally flows from you.
My show's called this, and it's about this, and
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. Done.
I'll throw the questions at you now
Cool.
when I finish this comment. Question from Laura. I'm a solo performer. How can I get help flyering?
Good question.
One thing I would do is one of the Fringe Central events is called Going Solo Together, and you meet other solo shows. And those are a really great resource because we really encourage solo shows to help each other, because you might find someone in your venue or with a really similar theme and actually use flyer for each other, because maybe you don't have the luxury of being able to go an hour before your show because you need to get ready for it. Also, like, we have a services directory which has some distribution on it, which is another good place to look for people who we talk for that paid for flying aspect, which, like, I'm sorry if I was doom and gloom, but that, like, they can definitely work for some people.
Oh, yeah,
But I'm
absolutely,
just saying,
yeah.
like, when you decide on someone and you're paying someone, just make sure that you can get them as passionate about your show as you are.
Yes.
I hope that answers.
I have some more questions, but for those who need to leave, I thought we'd jump to the next slide where we're talking about the upcoming Fringe cast. There aren't many to go because the Fringe is 6 weeks
we're getting
and
there.
3 days
Shush,
away. I'm
shush,
sorry for
shush.
saying that. Next Thursday, we have an episode called Taking Your Show Beyond the Fringe, which people may not be thinking about right now, which is completely understandable. But it's thinking about what you do after August, whether you want to take your show on tour or meet producers or anything like that.
Or just developing as an artist.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And an aspect of that is also marketing. So that's next week.
Yep. And I think that'd be really good because from personal experience, I was so worried about getting bums on seats, and then suddenly halfway through August, I was like, I love this show, I want it to continue. And then I was like, oh, I've done no preparation for making that happen.
What's next after that?
July the 2nd, we're going to be doing a Fringe cast focusing on mental health at the Fringe, which we're going to be working with Sick of the Fringe for that. And actually just, it's kind of just general tips on how to make sure you're looking after yourself during quite a chaotic, busy, potentially stressful, probably stressful period of your life.
Absolutely stressful. Yes.
And actually that links into marketing as well, because a lot of the times when someone comes to us and they're a bit frazzled and they're not doing having a great time in terms of bumps and seats is because they're like emailing press and flying in a sort of stressed out kind of haze.
Yeah.
And actually, our top tip for them is normally like take a day off. Not meaning cancelling their show, but just like take a day off from everything other than just doing your show. Go and see some shows,
water,
escape the city.
fruit.
So generally, that's going to be a little mental health at the Fringe summary.
And then we have 2 episodes in July that are properly, I mean, these are fairly unscripted, but we have no script.
We have no idea what they're going to be
It's
like.
simply, we're going to have a wide swathe of the team in the room for any questions, because at that point, 1 or 2 weeks ago, it's a stressful time. There are things you haven't thought about that have just cropped up, and we're here to help you through.
There might be a fight for a mic. It'll be like, who's relevant to this question?
I don't
pull up a pew
we'll
and
fit.
take a mic.
And then before we know it, it's July, end of July, start of August. Fringe Centre is open, and Amy and Alan will be there. I'll be there sometimes.
Daniel will be around.
He will.
But you know what? So come in for help, advice, but also like to say hello. Like generally, we really, if we've spoken to you before, and actually, or you just arrive in the city and you're really overwhelmed, and you're actually like, who's that weird Scottish person whose voice I've heard all the time? Just coming up and being like, hi, can I say hello? Like,
He
I've
looks
listened
like
to a
this.
Fringe cast. This
That
guy.
guy.
No, we're around almost all the time
Yes.
to just sort of say hello and actually just be like, okay, have you got your bearings? And kind of just check your head where you need to be
Exactly.
and keep in touch.
So I have some more questions before
Sure.
we go. In addition to the questions, you would have already got an email if you signed up online at 7 o'clock. A quick feedback survey. Let us know how today was, how we can make it better, or if there's any questions you forgot and now you have them. You can fill in that form and tell us, and we will get back to you.
As much as we're relaxing into these, and I'm going rogue with some answers today, these are still very new,
Yes.
and actually we need them to be relevant to you. Otherwise, what's the point in them? So actually, hearing what works is as much as it's nice to get feedback too, but actually hearing what works and what do more of that is also good.
Absolutely.
Not that I'm trying to plug that you should just say nice things.
I will say this because I look after our social media, but please give us a follow, like what we're saying. It's pretty much at Ed Fringe wherever you look, but we also have specific accounts for you as Fringe artists, which is at Fringe Central, which you can find both on Twitter and on Instagram, where we have dedicated content to help you make the most of your time in Edinburgh. You can go to edfringe.com/takepart, which has all our guides to performing at the Fringe. There's lots of guides.
I mean, there's literally an overwhelming amount of information on the take part section, but hopefully it's in digestible chunks.
But if you Google something like how to order flyers at Fringe, it will link to our site.
Yeah,
You'll
we're
find it.
normally the first. And actually, just there's loads of that guide where it's good to. There's lots of timelines and stuff, and it's just good to check in.
And then finally, we said it at the start, but I'll also put it into the live chat. If you have any questions about promoting your show, you can get in touch directly with Amy by emailing mediaadvice@edfringe.com. But for today, I think that's it.
Oh, do we not have any questions left?
Sorry, I tell a lie. We have 2 questions.
I was all ready for those
that I'm going to
questions.
throw to you. Right. The
Oh,
first
we can
question.
look at you,
You
well.
can stare down the lens. A question from Samuel, who asked,
Hi, Samuel.
my venue asked for A6 flyers. Is this common, or is A5 equally common?
So it's one of those annoying Fringe answers of there's no common.
No.
Like you see flyers of literally every shape and size. I'd say A5 is maybe the most prevalent, but definitely not you see the DL ones that are more vertical. You see little ones that fit in people's back pockets.
Business card ones.
Yeah.
I've seen them. Yeah.
Generally, there's everything. So I would say if your venue is going,
This is
for
what we want.
us, that needs to be like this,
Yeah.
then I would very much take that into serious consideration because that means you could have a big presence at your venue.
Yeah.
2 more questions, I think,
Whoa,
if I've read
exciting.
this right.
Say
One
it more,
from
it's Fringecast
David.
Extra.
Are there any limitations on playing live music on the street to attract people to your show? It's a complex answer, because in Scotland you can busk legally for anywhere for half an hour as long as you're not being a nuisance. But when it comes to, say, the Fringe street events, it is a very busy, loud place, and you performing music isn't really going to get any attention because it's loud enough.
Yeah, I was gonna just say common sense is a really big one on that. Don't, again, so much of flyering and things, don't be a nuisance.
Yeah.
If you find that you're actually annoying people, the Fringe is really big, but it's also really small, and it's really easy. You start to hear about people getting annoyed by the same people, which is horrible to say, but it's true. You hear those people have you seen those people that are based on that corner and driving everyone and blocking traffic or anything? Don't do any. You want to be so if live music's a good part of you, like good part of your show and a good selling point, maybe get on the Fringe Street Event stages, which just email streetevents@edfringe.com.
I'll share a link.
Daniel share a link. That's
It's
better than
quicker
sending
just
an
to
email.
sign up online.
Daniel hates emails. Because you can just sign up for them, and that might work really well for your show. Or maybe there's a nice spot in the meadows where you can do a bit of playing. If anyone asks you to move on or says you're being too loud, absolutely I would listen and like gauge the mood of the room and the environment that you're in.
So there's more questions.
More questions. Yeah.
If you flyer in a group, such as your cast members, should they flyer as a group or separately in different locations? And I guess by different locations, that's quite
You can cover more space in different locations. I have seen people flyering in groups. It's always a bit. I find it a bit intimidating if there's lots of people.
It's
like a many armed
because if I don't want to be flyed, if I'm in that, I can't avoid 7 people.
Yeah.
So I would say I would normally go like divide and conquer is the best thing of spreading out.
Sounds a bit dark.
Search and destroy.
Alan's war analogies.
Meet more people.
Divide and conquer, so as you're covering more ground and seeing more people. The place that it might work together is maybe you sometimes see in the Royal Mail people who almost have like a routine and it's very performative and it makes a statement. As long as you have the room to do that, that's when it works. But just all talking all at once or all shouting.
Yeah, it's a bit chaotic.
And
space is at a premium.
Yeah.
And you're best off not. It's advice for life. Best off not annoying people.
It's weird because for every rule there's an exception. So I'm like, if you are doing something, you've got costumes that all work together, or a little routine that happens,
or puppets,
actually 2 of you are working puppets and 2 of you are actually handing out flyers and having conversations.
Or one singing a song, 2 are flyering.
So just if you're going to be all together, I think maybe it's not all of you are necessarily flyering. You're all part of the flyering hoopla.
Last question. Fringe Cast Sector has run on longer than we've ever done before, which I think we kind of covered, but it's worth recapping. I've had a few publications contact me with advert deals from Edinburgh. I have a limited budget. Are they worth it?
Both look at me, the journalists tell us. Well, with ads, it's really important to say that you can control an ad. It's not like a review. You can't control a review, and they shouldn't be connected. Ads will make your show more visible. I would say look at the publications and see if they would serve your target audience. Yeah. So I always use the Skinny as an example because I used to work for them. They're for 18 to 35. If you're doing a show that's tailored for that audience and you've been offered an ad, people, your audience are going to read the Skinny and will see your ad. If it's somewhere like, I don't know, Church Times or something, and it's not really suited to your show, probably not. It's really up to you. But I would say don't expect anything further than an ad from the publication. I'd also say, and I hope this doesn't sound harsh, try and look at your artwork and your design of what you have really objectively. And I'm not saying get down on yourself or be negative in any kind of way, but even if you flick through the Fringe programme and stuff and see the ads that you think really effectively sell their show, they'll stick out. And I think you have to be really honest with yourself, being like, do I have artwork that will do that? Or am I just paying for presence and visibility, but maybe not necessarily whoa. Yeah, just like okay, cool. Would I, they talk about in America's Next Top Model all the time, would I stop and look at that page with that photo on it, or would I breeze right past? And I think that can be a difficult conversation to have, because you might be like, I know I've had it when I'm like, oh, do you know what, it works well on the flyer and it works well on the poster, but actually it's not. It's not an ad. It's not an ad. That's a very good way. So, it's your ad, an ad.
So that's our last question. So that's us done for today. Whether you're watching live or watching back, remember, obviously, if you're watching this back, you can obviously rewind it. But you can listen back to this at any time. If you can fill out the survey, that'd be great. But we'd love you to join us next week, where we're talking about taking our show beyond the Fringe. But the return of Katie Queen, our artist Queen of the North. So just all of us to say is thank you for tuning in and watching. As we go, we'd like to leave you with a sample of some of the shows you're in company with. Many of the shows that are coming to this year's Fringe that we've pulled together in a little trailer. Someone's show might be in it. You may be in this trailer. We'll see. Just to give a feel and get the excitement going, because I say nearly 6 weeks to go. But that's it from us. So thank you very much. We'll hit the trailer and we'll speak to you soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.